You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Naruto Enters House of the Dragon. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of NeonZangetsu on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Cannibal flared his wings to belt out another raucous roar, rattling the very world. Yet for all that, he did not attack. Curious. Rhaenyra winced, one hand over belly. Was that a challenge or a greeting? Naruto didn't answer at first, rather, he strode forward. Let's find out. Alicent tugged at his arm. Must you? He quirked a blonde brow her way. Would you rather I leave him there? He's bound to cause trouble. Evidently Rhaenyra agreed, because she kissed his cheek. Alicent was only a heartbeat behind. Be safe. He beamed a little and strode forward to stare at the massive ebony beast before him, eyes narrow as he waited for it to make its own move. The people of Flea Bottom had already fled, the gold cloaks having done their duty to safeguard the people. The dragon pit was locked up tighter than a tick's arse when the announcement had came. The emotions of hunger and rage swept over him long before them. Alright, big guy, he raised a hand as he advanced. Sun's getting real low. Now why don't we just? The black dragon charged with a feral roar. Hard way it is. Naruto's own challenge was given in a rousing roar as the blonde Uzumaki rushed forth as well. He rolled under the snapping jaws, and he pushed his feet down, and jumped. Senjutsu chakra channeled through his veins as he crushed the earth and filled the air with his vastly smaller body and slammed into the massive drake and tackled him not only away from the mud gate, but off the cliff and down to the beach, the snarl of the cannibal filling the air as the sound of crashing rocks did. Crashing upon the sand, Naruto grabbed the massive horns and flexed, all of his sage chakra filling his muscles and straining them to their limits, slammed the dragon upon its back, the earth shaking from the beast's crash, water spraying as its mass landed across the sand and water. Flames lashed out and with a grin he grabbed a hold of the emerald-colored destruction through the use of his 6 paths chakra, condensed it, spun around and grunted as he hurled the flames right back at the cannibal with a laugh. A grin split his face as he watched them detonate explosively upon contact with his body. However, he wasn't expecting a response, nor anything really. Flames against the father of fire, the dragon questioned as the smoke vanished. You would do better to hurl rocks at a mountain. You're not cannibal, Naruto balked, only for the dragon to snarl in response. There is no cannibal. He leapt into the air, swiping a clawed wing at the flame-clad man who grunted as he evaded the attack, opened his right hand, and clenched his fingers into a claw. An eerie hum arose in the air as motes of blue light swirled within his grasp, growing large now, larger, largest. He didn't give the dragon time to think. Thought was the enemy here. He dove down and struck. Rasengan, he called out, a clap of thunder echoing across the capital while the possessed dragon slammed against the wall of the city and crushed sections of it before coming to a stop as it skipped across the ground, a cloud of dust following his path. Following after, Naruto came to a stop a short distance away. I have no idea how you came to possess that dragon, but you better release him, now. Because if you don't, I'll shove my boot so far up your dash. The hatchling has fled. His song fades, only I remain, the controlling aspect responded darkly. No, he said in denial, I can feel him, hear him crying out, he responded as he landed on the ground. Smoke and fire burned around the two, but they continued to look upon the other, gazing upon their adversary. The creature spoke in a soft growl to him, an ember of the flame, nothing more. Naruto growled as he came to understand, I see, release him, that dragon wouldn't want this. He would never want this, he stated with narrowed eyes. What a mouse wants, is nothing. What he has, is nothing. You will provide me the feast. Naruto girt his teeth, scowling in anger. I won't give you, a damn thing, he responded darkly to the thing possessing the dragon, and I won't let you control that dragon anymore. There is no distinction. There is no you, it told Naruto as it growled, fire building in its throat. You are the child of fire, it said as he growled deeper, the flame within building up, a part of me, and you will obey. Drawing its head back, spurts of flame filled its jaws as it roared. The flames washed over Naruto like a tsunami, but rather than burn away into nothingness, he held out a hand drenched in raw six paths power and slowly began walking through the sea of emerald flames, all the way until he reached the snarling dragon. I am no one's child, he snarled, smashing a powerful uppercut into the jaws of the beast causing it to redirect the dragon's head, the flames blasting the cliff and burning away a majority of the walls of the city in which they sat. I am the fire. However, this didn't stop the apparently possessed cannibal in the slightest. He continued to roar, his fire burning down across the stone, ripping everything apart as it turned the roar that had been blocked upon the whelp of a human. Now clad in his golden shroud, Naruto felt the beast's insatiable hunger rise. Food. Hunger. Starving. Feast. Now. In return, he didn't hesitate. Upon seeing the rage and fury the hunger of the dragon, Hugh whipped his hand through the air, dispersing the flames. No more, he called out, this is the last time. I told you what would happen if we fought again. This either ends with you being my friend, or... With a leap, he stood upon the back of the startled beast's head, placing a hand to the scales beneath his flesh, and pushed chakra into the creature. Something stirred at his touch and he felt it, or rather, sensed it, the reason for the mindless settlement upon the creature, the endless hunger and constant rage. He'd been cursed by a former MSTR, to never stop, to always feast upon those who could not defeat him. A choice lay before him. Kill or save. He had mere moments to choose. But could he save one so mad with hunger? Before he could decide on simply ending the beast's agony, he allowed his six paths chakra to link their spirits, but he couldn't have planned what came next in a million years as his mind was pulled away from his body. Swirls of color ran rampant around him and suddenly he found himself in an entirely different location. Fire blazed across the land as thunder crashed across the cloudy heavens, and suddenly a deep familiar voice called out, shocking the young man with a sharp cry. The burning truth. Naruto couldn't help but gasp as he turned around and laid eyes on the familiar form of the cannibal itself. Little mouse, we finally meet beyond the void. Cannibal, he called out in shock, is that you or bot? The dragon gave a wry laugh, you have met the flesh illusionary that possesses my body. The lie contaminated after centuries of unfathomable hunger gave rise to the one called cannibal. My true name is Slyrak, known as the Father of Fire for the sheer potency of my heart flame's strength. I must say that you have done well, but even you must know of the danger that approaches, do you not? I do, he stated without looking up or around for the speaker, and I'll probably be the first to fail, he stated. Gentle laughter filled the void. You confuse despair with defeat, little mouse, it told Naruto, you have not failed, you have found the source of our long silence. The world changed and shifted once more into a whole new plane. The landscape was eerily calm and appealing. The sky was a mix of blues and greens as stars fluttered about. Massive mountains floated through the darkness of space, clouds of mixed colors surrounded them like a silent wave of smooth glass. Naruto stood on the edge of a mountain while Slyrak stood upon another where they could converse. Naruto shook his head. No, I didn't, he denied, I just wanted to help to break the hold whatever was causing you to act like you were. That clouded our sight was merely not what you imagined. Slyrak calmly stated to him, it was not what either of us imagined. His calm tone drew Naruto's gaze up to him, but the truth must be clear to you now. As it has become clear to me. My former MSTR had placed his spell upon me to cause me unending pain and agony with each consumption of my kindred. Now that you have revealed your powers to him, he seeks you so as to bring his dark schemes to a head, and such darkness must be vanquished or all is lost. Who is your MSTR? The way you say it, it confuses me as you said you've been like this for years, how could he dash? His name does not matter, little mouse, though the massive dragon to speak over him not rudely, but calmly. It is worse than you think. If he possesses you, he will cause war and famine hitherto undreamt of, starting with the chosen heart. Chosen, huh? Naruto asked, utterly baffled. As you have known your father's light. You have known your mother's love, the dragon stated calmly. Naruto shook his head, what are you, huh dash, he shook his head in confusion. What in the hell was this dragon even saying? Ugh, couldn't he be more straightforward? We, are me. Do you not understand? Slyrak questioned, confusing Naruto even further, I am in your BLD, as you are in mine. It has always been so. It is why I have chosen you. With a flap of his wings, a bright golden light illuminated the void, the light slowly shaping itself above them, causing them to gaze upon it together. And now, you think of little else but protecting the clutch and hoard as any true king would. You would kill for her, you would die for her, Slyrak stated as images of his allies and loved ones appeared over him, but it was Rhaenyra's form that stood out as he held her arms out towards him as if asking to embrace him. Rhaenyra, the chosen queen to the one who has the heart of a righteous king. Slyrak told him softly as he leaned down with a smile, her true destiny was shrouded in doubt. Her light eclipsed beyond the dark void of the madness. So you're saying she's what, my soulmate or something? Naruto asked, somewhat lost on what he was being told. Slyrak nodded deeply, proud of him. The spell cast upon me by my old MSTR had obscured my vision, but in your heart, you knew from the first who she was. What she was. You have stood in the gaze of the one you deemed most precious since you first met. You could not choose your heart's longing, but you hewed to her side as she was already chosen. And they need us now, she needs us. Naruto stated as he gazed upon the dragon. Slyrak chuckled softly to his chosen MSTR, she does not need us, he said unto him, she must find the power within herself, to stand against the coming evils that will surely turn this realm into nothingness, and in time that strength will pull her out, as I have sought you out. She's not going to get the chance. You know what's out there, who is out there. She can't stand against him, nor can anyone else if everything is torn apart. Naruto responded. Flesh is ephemeral. Slyrak told him, what resides in her heart is eternal, beyond death. So you mean to say, it's fine if she dies because we still get what we want somehow? Naruto shook his head in confusion before his eyes narrowed, no, he snarled, what's the point of doing all this if none of it matters, he demanded, flesh isn't ephemeral. Flesh is essential, he countered, life has meaning because it's short. Because we're vulnerable, because we hurt. And when we're gone forever. It's why we fight. It's why I fight, he stated seriously, passionately, I ask of you, beg of you, to grant me the strength to do what I can't. An earthy rumble rattled his teeth. And what is that? He stared cannibal, no, Slyrak, dead in the eye. Take me to the one who did this to you, who cursed you, and I'll break it. Slyrak was surprised, you would have me take your side in this flesh illusion? He questioned Naruto, you would have me fight for you, knowing that you will almost certainly not redeem your soul in its most essential form. Naruto nodded, without hesitation. He wasn't prepared for the booming laughter that followed, it rattled existence itself. Then we will fight, little mouse. Slyrak decreed as he spread his wings wide, we will warm the herd. We will shake the stars from heaven, find the one who struck me so and tear him asunder. Let's do it. Slyrak flared his wings with eagerness as his voice called out, Tio battle. Naruto planted a hand on his chest, wreathed out with his will and pushed. Unknown. Opening his eyes, he found himself surrounded by darkness. Sure, that ain't ominous at all. A deep heavy breathing from some unheard direction sounded like something he should look into if that lizard had sent him here of all places. What was this place anyway? Slyrak's soul. No, it felt deeper, darker, he had followed the link that bound him, the curse that bound his very spirit, until it brought him here. Wherever here was. Following the sound, he saw an opening appear and decided to stand against the wall and edge towards the opening. As he peeked around a corner, he beheld a man clad in dark armor, enveloped by a strange green aura not unlike Slyrak's flame when he unleashed it, standing before a fallen corpse, massive crimson and black dragon not dissimilar to that of Slyrak himself. Before he could continue watching, the man spoke to him. "You can come out, Naruto Uzumaki. Hiding will avail you nothing in this plane. It just had to be a ghost, didn't it?" Warily, he edged his way around to face him fully. "Ah," the man sighed, "there he is, the child of prophecy. He who shall save or raise the world asunder, at long last we meet." Naruto felt his eyes widened in shock. No man from this realm could hope to know about the prophecy from his world. And yet this one claimed to. Clenching his fists, he approached cautiously. "So, you're Slyrak's old MSTR, are you?" A fist tightened behind his back. "What are you called?" "Naruto Uzumaki. As I know you, it is only right that you know who I am." "My name is Orion, and I am the last true Valyrian of the Freehold." The man spoke in an admittedly unsettling voice, sounding pleased by the tone. "I am glad you came, to witness the beginning of my rise," he told him. "Join me, as friends we could accomplish that which even your own limitations could not. Together, we can save this world from the cold that is to come." "Friends?" he balked in confusion. "Join you? After all you've done? And just who the hell is that dragon anyway?" "It ain't Slyrak, he doesn't look anything like him." The man merely chuckled. Valyrian was old, sick, he stated appreciatively about the apparent dragon he stood upon, yet even his powers at their height could not have saved him, he stated. "Not from me," he told him, turning around, revealing unsettling green eyes and an even more foreboding aura to him, long pale hair stirring in an unseen breeze. "Truly, it was a mercy." "Ah, CRP. Tell me, young Naruto." Orion said eerily, "If you could do what has been done, if you had the power, would you take it?" The very air seemed to ripple around him as he chuckled hoarsely, "A young man who only wants what all orphans longing and need, to know that they were loved. What I was a child back then. How do you dash?" he went to demand, now more than outraged of this man above him, shrouded by unknown and frightening power. "Childhood evaporated once you came of age in your society. It has certainly been strppd away since." Orion remarked darkly, "A boy made man when you lost that which was most important to you. Your rage, I know you." Orion pointed towards him, "I see you for who you are. Trapped in your own hell of uncertainty, your life full of regrets, fear of starting a war, of losing the two women you love above all else." He drew closer to him, forcing the young man to step back. "What wouldn't you do to escape? You know nothing about me." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "I know this much together, our dreams can become reality," he stated, "all you have to do is let me in." He stepped back, unnerved. "And why the hell would I do that?" "Because I can give you what you want." The long-dead specter replied. "What you crave. Power beyond your wildest dreams." "Yeah, no," he brought both hands together and flared his chakra cloak, only to balk when nothing happened. Orion's grin gained an inch. "You cannot contact Kurama here. It is your soul I wish to speak to, not his. Now, let me in." However, this conversation was quite literally stopped as a new energy filled the cavern. The ground began to change from a dark black in the darkness to a sweltering red and then white in an instant as fire began to burn from nothing, a new voice growling as the newcomer made their presence known. "You will release both my MSTR and my soul, so that we may rejoin the song of the world, and take you down." The ground erupted in a mix of molten lava and burning earth and blazing flame as a new entity unveiled themselves. A massive black and familiar dragon stepping through the inferno with a rumbling growl filling its throat and a very noticeable scowl on its face. "Ah, my dear friend Slyrak, you finally show yourself after all these years to me," "O Father of Fire," the man said, sounding rather pleased by this newcomer appearing in the middle of their conversation. "The heart flame speaks, and chooses you to give it voice," he remarked, seemingly pleased upon seeing the massive crimson and black monstrosity. "I'll collect your soul, as I collected Balerian's. You will be fuel for the fire that is to come." Balerian was ready for death. Slyrak stated heatedly. The madness was upon him, the weakness. He all but growled the word. "I am not so disadvantaged." The dragon reared back in a way that made Naruto gasp, and then leap behind a wall. Golden energy raced up the dragon's neck, filling the back of the massive dragon's throat, coalescing together in a mix of unique chemicals only housed within those of this ancient and powerful species. And with a roar, emerald and ebony flames erupted from the dragon's maw and filled the cavern. Stone melted away, turned to so much magma in an instant. The man's flesh burnt away to a crisp as the flames washed over his body with no remorse. With a snort, the flames died down and the heat remained, to show the young dragon knight the power of one of the ancient marvels of creation and destruction. Light from the molten rock filled the cavern, and Naruto's shock only grew by what he now saw. The wall he hid behind glowed from the heat from the dragon's flame, his armor glowed from being so hot. Fruling's dead body was nothing more than a lump of charcoal, his sword melted beyond recognition and repair as it stood in a pool of glowing rock. The ground shook as the massive eldworm stepped forth to admire its work before it spoke up. "Come, little mouse," it told Naruto, "fight alongside me so that we may show this old fool just who it is he challenges on this day and cast him back to the void." However, before he could even remotely get away, something unexpected happened. A voice filled the air. "Dragons no imagination." Naruto found himself shivering in horror. It shouldn't have been possible, and yet just what was this madness? The spot where the spiritual presence of Orion had once been suddenly filled with an eerie tainted green light as something pulled away from the body and swirled through the air. All brute force. The man sighed as the body fully fell and turned to ash in the air, the green energy moving about and then latching on to the next thing available, the massive body of the dead dragon. No, the black dread Balerian. No cunning. A pulse of energy washed over the massive corpse, filling the cavern with iridescent green light. No guile. Much to Naruto's shock and silent horror, the body began to rise up, flesh once more gaining life as the spirit filled the vessel, an eldritch horror that looked like a puppet cutting its strings in reverse almost, but this time, the voice that spoke belonged to no man or mortal, but that of the dragon which had been slain. "Only weakness," it growled out as it turned its sight on the growling dragon. The body of Balerian slowly rose up before it floated in the air, as if gravity did not matter to it. The eerie green aura that had once surrounded the man now eclipsed the massive body in which the entity now called home. "You will serve once more." The cannibal no, Slyrak narrowed its eyes, a growl filling the back of its throat. "I did so once. Never again." Naruto stumbled as the cavern shook from the immense weight of the glowing dragon slammed into the floor of the cave. A roar shook the heavens and rattled the earth, forcing Naruto to cover her ears from the sheer intensity of the war cry. The sheer depth of it was unlike anything he had heard. As if that wasn't enough, Slyrak bellowed his own challenge, the cavern shaking to the point that sections of the ceiling above cracked from his own outrage. Naruto cried out as he felt her ears ringing from the cries of the two dragons. The ground shook as Slyrak stomped down on the ground, and then pushed off, massive gusts of wind pelting the young human as the massive dragon took to the air above. The corpse of Balerian charged forward with a snarl as Slyrak himself swooped down, claws prepped to tear his opponent apart. Swiping at his enemy's face, Slyrak drew first BLD as his claws raked across the corpse's face before he swiped again, pushing Balerian's body back. However, if the possessor was deterred, it did not show it as the entity rammed its host's head up and slammed into Slyrak's face. With a snarl it swiped its long dark claws and slammed them into Slyrak's own neck to push the dragon back. Planting his feet, Slyrak snarled as he spun around, slamming his tail into his fellow dragon's face, causing the being to stumble before roaring in fury at its fellow dragon. Slyrak growled as he pushed off the ground, wings filling the air with claps of thunder from massive wing beat. Slyrak growled as he inhaled deeply, and Naruto gasped in shock. The glow within the back of the dragon's throat was far more intense, the heat unbearable. The being possessing Balerion followed suit, eerie green energy gathering in front of the corpse's maw before the two dragons simultaneously bellowed. Black and crimson flame collided with eerie green and ebony. The cavern shook as the two flames pushed one another back and forth in a stalemate that would only end if one gave in. However, Slyrak wasn't called the father of fire without reason, and with a roar, he overwhelmed the black/crimson fire and bathed the dead dragon's body in his flame, pushing it back with a cry of agony. The flames quickly died, and Naruto was watching the fight in mesmerization as the body of Balerion raised its right wing up. Skreok. Snarling in contempt, it slamming the limb down in a manner similar to a punch into the earth and ripping the ground apart as massive ruptures filled the cavern and the earth did his bidding, rising up and slamming into Slyrak with enough force to push him back with a cry. At the same time, the corpse charged forward as the rock it had upturned crumbled apart, and rammed its horns right into Slyrak's chest. Rrgh, a shriek of agony filled the air as Slyrak was impaled upon the horns of Balerion's corpse, and then pulled off. Naruto gasped in shock, and then cursed as he began to run as he watched Slyrak begin to fall towards her direction. OSHT. Why did he not move when he had the chance? Slyrak crushed upon the ground and filled the air with smoke and dust. Naruto waved his hand in front of him and watched as the dust settled. Naruto slowly looked out from his hiding spot and watched in silence as the glowing dragon approached Slyrak. Heavy thuds filled the air as the glowing form of Balerion drew nearer. I smell your fear, the body growled out towards the rising fire dragon. If Slyrak was defeated, he did little show that he was out of the fight, his mouth filled with fire, his eyes narrowed in rage. Only my hate. Slyrak snarled as he leapt at the corpse, surprising both Naruto and the entity possessing Balerion. Sharp teeth latched down on the glowing dragon's throat, Rararg. A pained cry filled the air as they dug in and began to rip into flesh. BLD spurted from Balerion's throat and filled the air as the massive eldworm was bitten into by the throat. Naruto knew that if this continued two things would happen. Slyrak would perish, and then he would follow shortly after. That wouldn't do. He quite liked being alive. With his mind made up he charged in towards the grappling dragons knowing what he planned on doing was both reckless and stupid. Leaping off a cliff, he landed on Slyrak's back and raced up towards their heads as they grappled one another. The entity possessing Balerion snarled as it slammed one of the claws down onto Slyrak's head, pushing the red dragon off, and ripping off a massive chunk of flesh in the process. There, a weak point in the dragon's chest. Seeing his opening, Naruto cried out, pulled his hand back and called upon his chakra. From there, he began to focus and form his most overused technique as he condensed and rotated his energy to form a towering ball of light. He jumped off Slyrak by the shoulder, flipped in the air, moved the orb of energy in front of him, and then stabbed it into the wound, piercing the possessed corpse in the heart with the rotating ball of condensed energy. Rasengan, the teen called out as he gave his all to ending the curse placed upon Slyrak. The body of Balerion cried out while it stumbled back with a wail of agony. At the same time, Slyrak looked up and noticed the young man standing on the corpse's chest and stabbing it in a vital area and smirked. Brave little mouse, he commented as he watched it unfold before his eyes. Naruto cried out as his Rasengan was shattered and he was hit by the now cracking body of Balerion and fell from the air, only to stop as a dark-scaled skin filled the space beneath him, catching him before he could hit the ground. He didn't need to look back to see Slyrak's aid. He used his wing as another vantage point to bounce off, conjure a Rasen shuriken to his hand. Orion's shattered spirit howled at them. Fools! If you slay me, nothing will save this world from the cold. The long night. I don't care. The jutsu struck true and obliterated him. The possessed corpse roared a final cry in death, and then bright light filled the cavern, energy lashing out like lightning before it ended in an instant, the massive cadaver falling to the ground truly dead once and for all. Slyrak allowed Naruto to slip down from his wing where he looked at the smoking corpse of the dead dragon. Orion, he's, Naruto muttered in uncertainty. Gone. Destroyed. Never to return. Slyrak stated calmly, now that the fighting was over, and young Balerion, his soul, lost, he stated, the world around cracking apart before the two of them found themselves out in the real world. We did it, then. We did, little mouse, Slyrak snorted. Naruto leapt down and looked at the dragon in uncertainty, so, what dash, he didn't finish as he watched as the cannibal as Slyrak turned and presented himself to Naruto almost as if well, he had a dragon now, what do you know, how does one respond to such a thing? You fought well, he told Slyrak. You honor me, Slyrak said, pleased by his choice. As you honor me. Naruto said, smiling. Apparently that was what you say to a dragon. Kurama interjected with a sullen sigh. And you'd both honor me by explaining what the hell knocked me out back there. I'll tell you all about it. Climbing upon the dragon's back, Naruto inhaled deeply and laughed a little, ready to take the first step into becoming a dragon lord. Even from here, he could see a great many people watching from the city cliffs above, with Slyrak's sheer size, they were impossible to miss. There could be no ignoring this. History would write this day as the Song of Flames, but to Naruto it was the day he had gained a great and irreplaceable friend. Many wouldn't understand his reasoning or his thoughts, but Naruto could have cared less. He simply helped a lost soul regain freedom. One hell of a wedding gift indeed. Slyrak beat his wings once, angling toward the cliff. Now, then, little mouse. Let us meet these mates of yours. Together, they took flight. Someone was coming. Melas heard their footsteps long before he saw them, not that he could see much of anything in this cell of his. The black cells were truly wretched things, those thrown into them found themselves summarily deprived of everything, no visitors, no food, no light, left to rot until such a time as their trial began. For a learned man such as himself, there could be no greater torture than such sensory deprivation. He no longer knew how much time had passed since his imprisonment down here in the dark. How many days? 1. 3. 5. 9. It felt like longer. He was forced to lick moisture off the damp cell walls just to survive. Guards checked on him in erratic intervals, likely to make sure he didn't take his own life, and any attempts to barter for his freedom only resulted in a beating. Now the former, Grand Maester bridled as his cell door swung open with an ominous creak. The fire of a torch filled the air, after so many days in the dark, it was blinding. Melas curled into a corner and raised an arm to shield his sunken eyes against it. The moment he did, someone chuckled. It was a cold and mirthless sound, made all the worse by the echoing walls. Painful, isn't it? A familiar voice intoned. It must be a nightmare down here, spending your days in the dark. And to think you once had the same fate planned for me. His blood ran cold. How did he know that? No, wait, that voice. This wasn't a guard at all. It was. Open your eyes, Grand Maester. Against his better judgment, he did. Naruto Uzumaki stared back at him, blue eyes blazing, smile sharp. Something deep inside Grand Maester whimpered. Guards, he cried. Guards. Help me. But no one came, none answered. Silence reigned supreme. They aren't coming. Rhaenyra's consort briefly turned away from him, planted a torch into a nearby sconce to hold it. I've given them the night off. You, on the other hand. He was going to die here, wasn't he? Focus. Calm yourself. Just think, Melas. He won't kill you here, you know too much. Use that. Drawing himself upright, he put on what he hoped was a brave facade. You've gone too far this time. When the king hears of what you've done. The king? Naruto's voice cut into his tirade, smooth as a butter knife. Who do you think sanctioned all this, Nonsense, he sputtered back. Otto Hightower would never allow a loyal servant of the Citadel to. Otto Hightower is dead. The words hit the maester's confidence as a warhammer might a window and broke it apart, shattering any hope he might have had alongside it. No. No, no. No, no, no. Or he will be, soon, the Lord of the Stepstones amended with a shrug as he reeled from the news. I think Alicent fed him to Silverwing's hatchlings before our wedding. She won't talk about it, and I don't blame her. It's a terrible thing for a child to watch their parent die, let alone kill them. But you never had children, so I suppose you wouldn't know anything about that now, would you? Almost absent-mindedly, he walked his way back to the torch and swept his left hand over it, flicking his fingers across the flame. You were never a parent, never a father, never a real man, because after all, Ariel Man would never try to kill a mother and her unborn child. The Queen. He was talking about the Queen. Melas bit his dry lips. Deny. Deflect. I haven't the foggiest idea what you mean, my lord. Pain cracked across his face, caught him in the jaw, and bodily hurled him across the room. He felt stone crack against his back as he struck a wall, something popped in his right shoulder and he cried out, only for a hand to clamp down around his mouth, wrench him down to the floor, and hold him there. Two finger pushed against his left eye with intent. Lie to me again, and I'll take this. Are we clear? He grunted. Transparently. Good man. Naruto led him up, but made no effort to set his dislocated shoulder. It took him more time than he would have liked to force himself upright with his good arm. Even then he didn't dare take an eye off him for fear of what he might do next. This time, he said suddenly, you won't be around to interfere with Emma's next BRTH. Melas grimaced. Then she is? PRGNNT. Naruto tore the torch free from the sconce, sending sinister shadows skittering about the room. Yes, she is. I looked her over just last night. We think it might be a boy, this time. And then, with a slow smile, he leaned in and twisted the proverbial knife. And Rhaenyra's already carrying a baby in her belly. Betcha didn't know that either, did ya, old man? Alicent insists she is, too. Melas spat at him. Fiend. Maybe, Naruto shrugged, but at least I'm a happy one. The fact that he was telling him this at all didn't bode well for him. Gods be good. He wasn't going to leave this room alive, was he? Now, then. You're going to tell me everything you know about this conspiracy of yours. Melas dreaded to think what might happen if he didn't. As though sensing that though, Naruto snapped his fingers. On cue, door opened behind him, hinges creaking. Exclamation point. A man clad in pale, eerie armor shuffled inside, face hidden by an odd cowl that did precious little to hide his fervently bright eyes and bearded visage. He pushed a strange cart before him, a loud noisy thing that rattled and clamored most oddly. Dazed as he was, it took Melas a moment to realize just what lay atop said cart, to see the telltale gleam of metal, the tools of a craft most familiar. Torture instruments. This is the heretic, then? His voice was soft, barely a whisper of a rasp. Not the word I'd use, but sure, why not? Naruto nodded. He's all yours, Inquisitor. Make him sing. Melas shrank back as the silent fellow began selecting his tools. What in the name of the seven is an Inquisitor? A blonde brow rose. You don't know? No, but how could you? Rhaenyra and I were busy in the Stepstones, you know. Me, especially. I accidentally found religion. Literally, he slapped a palm to his whiskered face to heave a long-suffering sigh, mildly exasperated by the very concept Melas didn't understand. As in I founded the DMN thing. Apparently when you destroy an island, folks bow down, whether you like it or not. Melas spluttered indignantly. Those are baseless rumors propagated by the Triarchy. Naruto removed his hand to smile his way. Are they? I'd take you there, but that would be a waste of time. Point is, these guys, he gestured over his shoulder, won't stop following me around. Ray and I had a good long talk about it, and we decided that, like Lorgar, we may as well put them to use. A rustle of cloth arose behind him, punctuated by the hooded man's voice. I am ready, my emperor. The Lord of the Stepstones rolled his eyes. I keep tellin' you I ain't an emperor. The Inquisitor bowed his head. Not yet, my emperor. TCH. Naruto clicked his tongue and looked back toward the cart. Fine, fine, just get on with it and make him talk. This one's practically soiling his drawers already, we won't even need Corvus at this rate. Mela saw his chance and took it to barge past them, lunging for the door. A hand caught him by his robe and bodily hauled him backward. Hold him down. Strong palms wrestled him to the ground. On second thought. Fire flashed before his face as Naruto took up the torch and pressed it to his right cheek, digging the fire into his face. Melas shrieked as the impromptu brand scalded his visage. His captors didn't stop there. They rolled him over and the torn came in again, burning his other cheek, followed by his forehead, taking great care to burn, but not set him alight. How does it feel to be helpless? His captor hissed down at him as he screamed. How does it feel to know pain? How many people did you and Otto dispose of just like this, all for going against the grain? Melas gasped as they released him. Monster. I am. The causal admittance shocked him. What? I'm sorry, did you think I would feel guilty about this? The blonde berserker leaned back, blinking slowly. The old me might have, but he's dead. Westeros killed him. You and Otto killed him, with all your shadows and your schemes and your stupidity. You're stuck with the monster now. I don't know you. I don't particularly care about you. I can't even call you an ant, because that would mean acknowledging your meager existence when I squashed you. Madman. Maybe. Look what you turned me into. Look what I've become. All of this is your fault. Melas squirmed furiously, to no avail. Fool. You cannot hope to stand against the whole of Westeros, let alone the world. Yeah, about that. I have a dragon now. Your argument is invalid. Even so. You wouldn't dare kill me. You need me alive. Naruto blinked, just once. When did I say that? Then the Inquisitor brought out the shackles. Wait. They did not. In short order the once proud Grand Maester found himself dragged to a wall and chained there. His robes were ripped away, his whimpers ignored as the Inquisitor fetched a hammer and a pair of pliers. Melas was most familiar with the procedure, they would be taking his fingernails, next. Breaking his joints would come afterward, and then. He cracked. Wait, he blubbered out. Please. There's no need for this. Yes, there is, there it was again, that eerie, inhuman calm. You see, I'm not emotional about the dragons. You were doing what you thought was right to save the realm. I can't fault you for that one, no matter how much I might want to. Hope rose in him. But I am emotional about what you plan to do to my wives. Oh, no. He knew. My wives. Here at last Naruto raised his voice and it made the whole of the black cells tremble, if only for a moment. Just as quick his wrath vanished, reverting to frigid, frozen calm once more. No amount of money or favors or apologies can make that right, Grand Maester. No, for that, I'll have your life. After all, you had so many ideas and you even wrote some of them down. He unfurled a sheaf of parchment from his sleeve and began to read. Melas felt his heart sink. And so he read. Alicent would be sullied by a certain knight so as to make her unmarriageable, or barring that, sold to a BRTHL across the narrow sea, where she'd never be found again. A soft snarl pervaded his words for a moment before he recovered. Rhaenyra would be married to Gwaine Hightower, then disposed off once she has a son. Poison is preferable. If amenable to such, she should be attacked by intruders, with the incident made to look like an accident. Blazing blue eyes met his over the parchment. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Melas quailed. My lord, please, mercy. Would you have shown them mercy? They already knew the answer. You may begin. A nod on Naruto sent the Inquisitor to work. He began by taking hold of Melas' right thumb, drew the hammer back and... It matters not to me whether you die in silence or die screaming, Naruto spoke over the subsequent wail of agony. Cole might be sent to the wall, if only to spite him, because he so desperately wants to die. But you? You're never leaving this cell. There will be no trial. No execution. You'll spend the rest of your days here, until you vanish, and all the Red Keep will wonder why because another evil man will be gone. Melas tried to snarl, only to shriek as another fingernail was bloodily ripped from his hand. As though the Targaryens are any better. I will make them better. Did he truly think he could? Melas laughed brokenly. You poor fool. You cannot change human nature any more than you can make the sun rise in the west and set in the east. Says you. I'm the MSTR of whispers now. I have friends to protect, loved ones I can't neglect, so I'm not taking chances here. You're done for. And everyone who comes for them will be as well. If that means dyeing my hands red, then so be it. Monster. Madman. Melas howled at him, doing his best not to scream and failing horribly. After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night? The MSTR of whispers leaned in to regard him intently, blue eyes peering back at him through the gloom. For words were his reward. Next to my wives. Kristen Cole awaited his death. And why shouldn't he? He was a ruined man, battered, beaten and broken besides, missing an eye to boot. He had little left in him beyond a deep-rooted weariness and an aching loneliness, a burning longing not to be free of his chains, but rather, this very life. He'd long since told the torturers all they wanted to know in the hope that one of them would end his suffering. They had not. What was the punishment for assaulting a royal these days? Beheading? Burning at the stake? Drawing and quartering? One of those was cleaner than he deserved, but any death was better than none. By the gods, he just wanted it all to end. Hadn't he said enough? Seen enough? Suffered enough? Apparently not, because his captors had left him here to languish in the dark like a rat. Or maybe he was a rat, skittering in the gloom, foraging for crumbs upon the cold stone floor. No, that way lay madness. His body and will were long since broken, but his mind he would keep. He had to. He must. Right? It was no use, in truth he no longer knew how long he'd lived down here. Not long enough for his wounds to heal, certainly. Someone had been kind enough to bandage the ruined half of his face with a dirty rag, but that was all. They weren't feeding him. Like all other prisoners before him, he was left to waste away, to lick moisture from the dank walls to sustain himself. He wasn't sure why he bothered, it wasn't enough, he could feel himself withering away, wasting with every day. He'd long since become delirious, drifting in and out of consciousness. Sleep offered no reprieve, nightmares haunted him. Dark had his dreams been of late, he was losing the ability to distinguish truth from reality. Gibbering horrors plagued him and sometimes, when he tried to focus his thoughts, he heard the chatter of rats in the walls. He was going to be devoured, either by them or his own broken mind. But what was that just now? A noise in the dark. The door to his cell opened abruptly, startling him terribly. He looked up, squinting as someone entered his cell, torch in hand. Hello, Cole. Oh gods, he'd really gone insane hadn't he? Surely he must have, because she would never be here otherwise, never come to visit him, not after all he'd said and done. For you see, his guest wore a long, flowing dress of appealing black and red, with a pair of fine sword belted to her peach, her long hair drawn back into a loose braid slung lazily over her shoulder, violet eyes almost glowing in the gloom. She looked appealing. Regal. The very picture of a princess, no, a future queen. He recognized her, even in his madness. Gods be good, how could he not? This was the woman he'd sworn to serve, the one who ruined him. Rhaenyra. Don't be so surprised, his former patron set the torch in a sconce to peer at him. Naruto and Alicent each sent off their adversaries recently. It's only fitting that I be the one to bid you farewell. A bitter laugh left his lips as he hung his head to avoid looking at her. Is that what I am to you, now? An adversary? Your enemy? You didn't have to be, the sorrow in her voice dug deeper than any dagger. You chose this, Cole. As if he had any choice in the matter. Would that he could control his own emotions. Would that he could have avoided falling for her. Would that he had never accepted this hateful position as her protector. But he'd been blinded by her glory, by her beauty, by everything that she was and would be. And in due time, he'd fallen for her. How could he not? He never should have come to King's Landing. This city ruined people. Shattered dreams. Hopes. Lives. Though he could cut through the corruption here, he'd thought himself better. He knew better, now. Still, if the princess was here, and she had those swords. You're going to kill me, then? No, a slow shake of the head was his reward. I'm well aware that you seek the sweet release of death. To grant you it now will be a privilege, one you do not deserve. Something ugly stirred in him, the most bitter. Of jealousy. No more than you deserve happiness. Her violet eyes went half-lidded, reminding him of a dragon. You forget yourself, sire. Do I? He scowled up at her from where he lay. It seems otherwise to me. A pale brow rose, utterly unflappable. How so? You're using Uzumaki for your own ends. Is that what you believe? Quite the contrary, she clasped both hands before her belly, and unbidden, Cole found his gaze drawn to it, the way she cradled it, held it, protected it, really. Even now I carry his child within me. What is that, if not happiness? Her words stung. It should have been him. Maybe that made him a hypocrite, but so be it. I wish I'd never met you, he all but bit out the words. You've ruined me. In what way? She shot back. I made no overt offers towards you, I never once gave you my favor. It is you who read into things. She blinked at him, bemused. I suppose I must seem so to you. You are. He railed at her, mad with frenzy, blind to the consequences of his contradictory behavior. A foul spider who drew me into her web. Her expression didn't waver in the least. I am sorry you misunderstood me. Your intentions. What intentions? Her lip curled not in annoyance now, but disbelief. I never touched you. Never laid with you. If anything, you were the fool for thinking we could be more than we were. He snarled at her, undone at last. You were meant to be mine. I was never yours. The princess drew herself up with an indignant sniff. I chose my partner and he is not, nor will he ever be, you. She stepped forward and something in her eyes made him shrink back, pressing himself against the nearest wall. You, Christwan Cole, she all but hissed his name, will be gelded, his very being flinched at the word, and escorted to the wall, where you will live out the rest of your meager, petty days in utter obscurity. I dare say no one will recognize you in the north. Any who do might well take advantage of you, so you should perhaps hold your tongue. And should you ascribe to some foolish notion of vengeance, or try to strike back at us, be it through proxy or intermediary, well. Rhaenyra pointed. He followed her gaze, only to frown. Why was she indicating his chest? Cole tugged his tunic back, moving the threadbare fabric aside, and balked at what he found there. There was an eerie mark on his chest, painted in the shape of a dark spiral. It hadn't been there last night. Indeed, he hadn't even noticed it until this very moment. The eerie design seemed to shift and shimmer when he stared at it overlong, forcing him to avert his gaze as the beginnings of a migraine dawned. What is this? My husband's work. Rhaenyra answered him, supremely smug. He slipped into your cell and administered that seal while you slept. Should you draw near us without our express permission, or seek to lay a hand on any of the Targaryen bloodline without said permission, the results will be quite explosive. He bared his teeth at her. Witch. Call me whatever you wish. She shrugged a shoulder. But it was not I who applied it. Do you feel nothing for the torment you've caused me? Should I? The damned psychopath blinked back at him. Naruto and Alicent may feel some semblance of remorse for their deeds toward our foes. I do not. You are an enemy, Cole. Enemies are meant to be bent, broken, and beaten. Nevertheless, it would be boring to simply take your bits and send you on your way. Quick as can be, she plucked one of the blades from her belt and cast it down at his feet, sheath and all. Cole balked at it, fearing a trap. What is this? A trick? Rhaenyra tilted her head to regard him as one might a stupid child. I suppose you must think it so. Best me and I'll grant you a quick death. I may even allow you to leave this cell, if you so wish. She was offering him release, in one form or another. He licked his chapped lips and glanced toward the blade. You can't be serious. You're no match for me. I quite disagree. She drew her own weapon with a flourish and he realized it wasn't a blade at all, but a long fencing dagger of some sort. I've been training most diligently from the moment I met my husband. And you are presently far from your prime. Cole moved forward, just a touch. Rhaenyra kicked the blade his way. Pick it up. He looked at the blade. Pick it up, she demanded. Inched forward, now. Pick it up, she crooned, or I shall call my guards and have them take your leg as well. Anger seized him. So be it. He'd wiped that smug smile from her face. His body moved quickly, his hand lunging forward as he snatched the blade up, ripping it free from its sheath. It was a good blade, excellent sharpness, and decent weight besides it. Muscle memory served him well and he found himself settling into a familiar stance. If he was to die either way, he would be spiteful. Rhaenyra didn't bat an eyelash, not even when he stabbed for her belly and the child within. Much to his surprise, she slapped his sword aside with ease, forcing it high, leaving him wide open. A flash of silver was his only warning before her sword flickered in and cut horizontally across his throat. It was a shallow cut. Had she used more force he would have had his trachea severed outright. It still stung and wept BLD, forcing him to clamp a hand over the wound. He backed away, eyes wide as his mind reeled from this unexpected development. What was this strength? She was just a girl. Only a woman. A spoiled BRT of a princess. She shouldn't be this strong. Slow, she chided him. You used to be much faster than this. Incandescent, he charged back in, only for her to parry him and carve a cut into his right cheek. Sloppy, another rebuke, right in the pride. He stabbed for her throat. Sad. She danced aside with impossible grace, let momentum carry him past, then smashed the flat of her blade across the back of his leg, driving him down to the ground. His good eye flicked up to her, tracing the length of the blade. What have you done? She saluted him with her blade. I've become who I was meant to be. Her words infuriated him. She didn't deserve this happiness. Foul creature. Lurching to his feet, he pressed the attack like the madman he'd become, raining down blow after blow, driving her back into a corner. I don't have to take this from you. He howled at her, striking in a frothing fury. You wicked, manipulative, frigid witch. His sword fell to the ground with a dull clatter. Odd. He didn't remember dropping it. Hold a moment, why couldn't he feel his sword hand? Baffled, he looked down. His eye bulged. His hand. An agonized cry tore past his lips as he finally beheld it there, lying at his feet, still bleeding red. He clutched at his ruined wrist in vain, unable to comprehend what just transpired. How? A pitiful showing. Rhaenyra flicked the BLD from her blade and advanced upon him. Still, under any other circumstance, you might have had a point there. Except I never lie, her blade flicked out, jabbing into his chest to force him back again until his back struck the wall. I love my husband and my wife equally, and there's no one alive who can comprehend what the three of us are about to do next. She leaned close, all but forcing her weight against the edge of her weapon, nearly impaling him where he stood. And then she delivered the coup de grace. So in other words, Sir Kristen, kindly hold your tongue. Steel slashed across his face, disfiguring him further. He crumpled to the ground, trying to hold his nose onto his face, to no avail. Through ringing ears, he heard the princess mock him. Naruto must be rubbing off on me. I usually don't play with my food in such a manner. And you said such hurtful things to me. For that, your punishment will be more severe. I suppose I shall have your tongue for starters. Once more, the door opened behind her. Someone emerged from the shadows, or rather, several someones. 3 women in armor appeared to surround her, wearing colors of deep black and red. One of them carried a heavy chest. Impressive, aren't they? Rhaenyra crooned at him, heedless of his pained whimpers. We've been busy this last week. My husband has his Lord of Ravens and his Inquisition, while I have my Sisters of Battle. We'll have to found another order of some sort for Alicent. I suppose. It wouldn't do for her to feel left out. She touched a finger to her chin, idly considering. Then again, she professed some interest in those odd little mechanisms Grand Maester Melas left behind. Blinking once, she caught herself and smiled serenely. Ah, but I'm rambling, aren't I? Ladies? One of them opened the trunk. Cole tried to clamber back when he saw them withdraw a pair of tongs, but it was no use, he had nowhere to go. I told you, didn't I? Your punishment must be more severe. She looked to her battle maidens and nodded once. Take the traitor's tongue. See to it that he never utters such heresy against the crown again. You can take his root and stem afterwards. And see to it that he survives, girls. The wall has no use for a dead man. The tallest of them bowed. At once, my queen. Rhaenyra huffed. I'm not AO blasted. Is this what he has to deal with? It's rather irritating. See to it, then. Cole scrambled back as the trio advanced upon him, the hot tongs. No. Not that. Anything but that. The princess ignored him, already making for the door. Goodbye, Sir Kristen. The realm appreciates your service. One of the sisters forced Cole's mouth open. The second drew a knife. The third began to heat it over the still-burning torch. As for Rhaenyra, she left the cell just as they broke his jaw. Cole's screams echoed long and loud into the dark. You're looking awfully smug today. Am I? Rhaenyra preened and idly tucked a stray strand of pale hair behind her ear as she walked beside him. I hadn't noticed. Naruto most certainly did. He could sense it in her smile, hear it in her words, see it in the swing of her peach as she veritably sashayed forward beside him. His wife didn't walk down the halls of the Red Keep. She strutted, full of life and vitality, radiant in every way. It made him want to pin her to a wall and do things to her. Loud things. Noisy things. Things that would have her arching her back and crying out for more. Down, lover boy. Alright, maybe he'd gone a tad too far there. But he couldn't help himself. He was just so DMN happy. He was finally married. With a capital M. Bonsai. It felt well, better than he deserved, frankly. Even now in the wake of the wedding, 8 weeks after the fact, he was still riding high. Alas, he'd soon learned Westeros wasn't big on the concepts of a honeymoon, but he was gonna make sure she and Alicent had a chance to enjoy one as soon as the 3 of them could get away. Well, once he could tear Alicent away from her great work. She was dutifully determined there, if nothing else. Secretive, too. She wouldn't let them see what she was working on. Between tending to the newborn dragonlings and this new project of hers, he hadn't seen her as often as he would have liked. That settled it. A few months in the Stepstones would do them all some good. Just the three of them. It'd take them away from all this dithering and politics, if nothing else. But for now, there was work to be done, no matter how much he disdained it, fortifications to be built, alliance to be made, seeds to stomp out. The conspiracy had been thwarted for the time being, but there were still bits left behind, agents to root out, loyalties to be ascertained. Looking to his wife, he arched a blonde brow. "What's got you in such a good mood?" Rhaenyra leaned into him and let one hand trace the slender bulge of her belly. "I just remembered that Cole will be reaching the wall soon. What was left of him, at any rate. Good riddance to bad rubbish. The man was a pitiful shell of his former self, he'd never be a threat to them again. Or anyone else, really. She'd seen to that matter personally. Still, he couldn't quite figure out why Rhaenyra was thinking of him now of all times. And nothing. She paused in the hall, took a hold of his hands and whirled around to kiss his cheek. "I'm simply pleased by his absence. The thought of his suffering brought me more relief than a dozen orga. Rhaenyra." She giggled and whirled away from him in a swirl of scarlet silk, grinning madly. Not Targaryen levels of mania but enough for some merry mischief. As she spun away to walk ahead of him, he caught sight of her belly and smiled a little despite himself. Her PRGNNCY was quite visible now for all eyes to see, there could be no hiding it. PRGNNCY had certainly added to her curves in a most pleasant way. Rhaenyra reveled in it. She'd taken to wearing tighter dresses as of late, the better to emphasize both her bosom and the little life growing within her belly. As though to tell the world, ha, and laugh in their faces, mock them for ever speaking ill of her. She was utterly resplendent and more than a new nobles wore sour expressions whenever they passed by. PSS on M. They could go hang for all he cared. There were greater concerns afoot. He'd already told Viserys of his encounter during the madness of Slyrak and all that followed, this talk of the long night and what it might entail. Orion had spoken of a terrible cold and the darkness to come thereafter. Frankly, it was concerning. He might need to pay a visit to the north in the near future. Slyrak was laying low, but he'd taken an interest in Vagor. Good on the old WIRM. But he was staying far, far, far away from that. "I can feel you staring at me." Rhaenyra gazed at him over her shoulder and grinned impishly, distracting him. "Your eyes are full of lust." His gaze snapped up, caught in the act. "I've no idea what you mean." "Yes, you do," she stepped back to him, the better to nuzzle her head against his neck. "In truth I find it rather pleasant, knowing you longing me that badly." Her lips brushed his chin, tempting him, teasing him now as she reached down with one hand, fingers delving lower across his tunic. "Father has no need of us today, we could always snatch up Alicent, find an empty room and—" She whispered the rest into his ear and his throat went dry. Unbidden, he found himself looping an arm around her waist and pulling her close, drawing her in for a scorching kiss. Simultaneously, her hands rose to touch his shoulders as his palms brushed her melons. He wanted her, she wanted him just as badly, if not more so. Already she was tangling her left leg against his, twining their bodies ever. "Wait. Our room." She gasped the second word out between frantic kisses as his fingers parted the folds of her dress. "We need to find a room." "Easy enough." Passing a stone bench overlooking the gardens, he took her by the hand and made for the nearest door he could find. If the room within was occupied by someone they'd just order them out. Alas, it was not to be. Someone rounded the corner ahead of them before they could reach their destination, he didn't notice that. First, but Rhaenyra did, because she went completely and utterly still against him, so much so that he couldn't miss it. Following her gaze, he found the culprit. Alandra Martell looked lovely as always. Today she wore a fiery amber dress of slender diaphanous silk, both smooth and snug in all the right places. Her expression was another matter. "Ah, there you are, princess." Though her smile was sweet, her eyes were sharp. "I'd begun to think you were avoiding me." Rhaenyra's expression proved a study of contrasts. Her eyes were wide, cheeks flushed with concern. "I've not been avoiding you." "Then you wouldn't mind having a little chat, surely." Rhaenyra panicked, he felt it deep in her bosom. "I need to check on Vhagar." Naruto frowned. "But didn't we just?" She kissed him quickly, lips lingering on his. "I'll see you tonight, then." He balked, confused by her behavior, but allowed it. "Sure." Rhaenyra fled quickly, and make no mistake, she did flee, all but lifting her skirts well above her ankles to hasten her escape. Strange. He'd never seen her flee from, well, anything. Nothing in recent memory, really. Why did she run? The problematic princess smiled awfully. "Your wife is loyal." Alandra watched her go with wistful eyes. "She doesn't wish to be tempted, that's more than I can say for most. It is admirable. Still, she should say where the pleasure of the flesh, not flee from them out of uncertainty. I could teach her so much." He eyed her like the viper of her namesake. "Is there a particular reason why you saw fit to corner me?" "Not as such." He tapped his foot. "Then I'll just be going." She stepped into his path, all but blocking him with her body. "Gotcha." She had made her move, revealed her hand. Now what would she do next? Bold as ever. Alandra rolled her eyes. "Fine. Have it your way, might we converse?" His guard went right up. "That's not a good idea, can't we do this later?" She shook her head, setting her long dark hair swaying. "My father and I will be leaving King's Landing soon, so no, it cannot. We have already lingered too long as it is." She led him back to the stone bench he and Rhaenyra had passed only a few moments before, and promptly took a seat for herself. After a moment's pause, so did he, only for her to scoot close. Her peach brushed his. He stubbornly ignored it. Nevertheless, the Dornish princess took the lead, placing both hands in her lap before lifting her chin to address him. "When you last spoke with my father, he talked of an alliance. Are you still interested in such?" The old him would have said yes. Now he knew to keep his cards close to his chesser. A blonde brow toes. "That depends on the terms of said alliance. We are enjoying an unprecedented period of peace. It will not last." He scowled at her. "What makes you say that?" She smacked his arm and glared his way. "Because I know war. I have read the histories and studied the maps. Whenever those at the top grow comfortable, whenever they become complacent, it is then that their reign crumbles. You may well have shored up the Targaryen regime for another 100 years, perhaps 2, maybe even 3, but ask yourself this. War becomes of it when you're gone. Now it was his turn to shruff, they continue on as they always have. Foolishness. Corrin's daughter chided him. Don't you see? You are the glue that binds it all together. I don't see how any of that concerns you. Alandra made an impatient noise, rose abruptly and sat herself in his lap. From there she spread her legs on either side of him, then planted her hands on the wall above his head, all the better to pin him in place. Bah! He could break free in an instant. Still, he was curious to see what she wanted. The Martells do not wish a war with the crown, but much of Dorne does. She said. Many are still terribly cross with you for your deeds in the Stepstones. And you can make that go away, can you? I can. How? She ground her peach against his in a less than subtle invitation. Invite me into your bed. Give me a child. Her breath was warm on his ear. Or 2, 3, perhaps even 4 if you're feeling generous. With your blund bound with ours, Sunspear wouldn't feel so threatened. His face closed down. You must be joking. I am not. She huffed at him. Spread your line further and imagine what could be. What we could create. Naruto did. He saw it all too well. And what would follow? Which was why he took a hold of her hands, stood, and proceeded to pry her off him. It's a pretty picture, but I'll have to decline. He expected anger from her then, disappointment at the very least. Instead, she granted him another of her smiles. He didn't like this one. As you say, then. She shrugged the shoulder. Perhaps you will change your mind in time. My door is always open to you and yours. Her piece said, she touched a hand to his face, whirled on her heel and departed the way she'd come, peach swaying. Naruto watched her go. Only once he was entirely certain she had departed did he dare sigh, exhaling in a singularly explosive breath. These girls are gonna be the death of me. He hurried after Rhaenyra. Or rather, he tried to, only to round the corner and find a servant waiting there for him, message in hand. The youth, little more than a child, really saw him and bowed deeply at the waist. The white worm wishes a word with you, my lord. Naruto's brow shot into his hair. Who? The servant flushed. Demon's lover. Realization dawned. Ah. So much for it being a boring day. Alicent considered the marvelous mechanism before her, the loving LBR a result of her, and several craftsmen, engineers and adepts besides, hard work and many discussions besides. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was close. Oh, so very close. With trembling fingers, she turned it over in her hand. She couldn't wait to show Rhaenyra and Naruto. This would change the world. You're leaving for the Stepstones. So soon. Viserys was sad to see them go. It was only natural really, no parent wanted to let their child go, however briefly, and while they would be but a short dragon flight away, he was still loath to loose them, no more than ever, given Rhaenyra was carrying his future grandchild. Naruto felt for him, really, he did, but they needed time away from the Red Keep and so, together here they were, facing him before the Iron Throne. We won't be far, father. Rhaenyra reassured him. I promise to return before I give BRTH. I should certainly hope so, the king chuckled as he leaned back upon the throne, but there was a certain strained edge to his voice, an anxiety one simply couldn't miss. Your mother would be terribly cross with you otherwise. His daughter laughed a little at that, and looked past him, searchingly. Where's Demon? Here at last, the king's smile became more genuine. Visiting Driftmark. He flew off on Caraxes just this morning. Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes. It was so very like Demon to strike off on his own without saying anything to them. Frankly, it was miracle he'd told Viserys where he was going at all. He supposed that was a sign of mending bridges between the two, but still. Visiting, Rhaenyra's face lit up with ill-concealed delight. Lena caught his eye during the festivities, then. A nod. She did indeed. She also paid a visit to Vhagar shortly before their departure. Naruto's brow shot into his hair. When did that happen? While the two of you were occupied with the conspiracy, the king informed them. It wasn't a pressing matter, so I didn't think to mention it. Naruto felt a flicker, not dread, never dread, because he'd not ever been afraid of the hoary old lizard, but concern. Vhagar was a very large dragon, and she was very fond of Rhaenyra. Moreover, he didn't like the idea of the Valerians having a beast that large at their beck and call. They already had sea smoke, and frankly that was one dragon too many for such an ambitious house. Let her go claim a wild dragon if she was that keen for a partner of her own. Like you did? Not by choice, Kurama. Shaking his head, he reluctantly addressed the dragon in the room. Did she claim Vhagar? She did not. The king's response instantly uncoiled the tense knot in his heart. Vhagar tolerated her presence, but would not allow Lena to mount her. She was soundly rebuffed. Demon found it amusing. Rhaenyra huffed and laid one hand on her stomach, folding the other before her bosom. She had best not try again. Vigor is meant for our child, not her. Ha! Most fathers would have cautioned their daughter, called her greedy. Viserys merely chuckled. Nothing would please me more. Although, a pause followed, as he weighed his next words. At length, he decided to take the plunge and proceed. You should know, I aim to name my brother Hand of the King upon his return. With Otto gone, we need stability and strength, now more than ever. Naruto tilted his head, confused by the odd turn of phrase. All right. I did not wish you to take offense by not choosing you. Realization dawned. So did panic. Him. Hand of the King. Nope. Me. No, 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 he waved his hands frantically to that effect. I'm already MSTR of Whispers and Lord of the Stepstones. I don't want a third title, let alone that kinda responsibility, you know. The king relaxed. That is good to hear. I wish no ill between us. Heat crept up Naruto's neck. Kinda hard for that to be since I'm married to your daughter. Rhaenyra hummed happily, blind to the byplay. Still, that was kind of you, father. Is there anything else? There is another matter. As they looked on, Viserys withdrew a thinly wrapped piece of parchment from his sleeve. Another missive arrived from Old Town this morning. The Citadel is inquiring about the fate of Maester Melas. They've asked for his body. Ah. So they'd finally realized he was gone. Rhaenyra blinked with faux innocence. What maester? Naruto was all too pleased to mirror her in return. What body? Viserys gave them a rare reproachful look. He's still alive down there, isn't he? I promised I wouldn't kill him. Naruto lifted his chin defiantly in the face of his concern. I'm a man of my word. He's going to spend every remaining moment of his life in the black cells regretting his actions. Did you have to make such a promise? Anger sparked in him, lending his voice an edge as he squared his shoulders. Yes, I did. It was a great need. Viserys held his gaze for a long moment. You do realize this will turn more of the maesters against us. Perhaps all of Old Town. Let them. Rhaenyra stepped forth beside him. We'll deal with them soon enough. She thumbed her chin suddenly, considering. Although. Viserys laid a fist against his chin. I take it you have a solution, then. She did indeed, bless her. If they're that keen a body, take a condemned prisoner, swaddle them in maester robes, burn them in dragonfire, and hand the ashes over the maesters. Tell them he was burnt for his treachery. They'll never know the difference. It will both mollify them and serve as an example. Well, well. Seemed someone had been taking lessons from Alicent. A thought dawned, just then, and it was an ugly one. They're not asking for Otto's body. Viserys chuckled. What body? Huh, very funny. Right, she'd fed him to the dragon hatchlings, hadn't she? You'll be leaving soon, then, I trust. Tomorrow, Rhaenyra clarified. The king slumped. Naruto saw his sorrow, sighed, and did his best to lighten the old man's load. It's not like you'll be completely alone in any case. I'll leave some disguised clones to keep you safe. In the meantime, have all of your and Emma's food monitored and tested for any poisons. We don't want any harm to come to her child. Rhaenyra nodded her agreement, but slowly, made somewhat sullen by the mention of her future brother or sister. Orwyle, at least, can be trusted to do that much. He's proven his loyalty to us. Mollified by their words, he nodded. I suppose he has. He's certainly given a great many secrets to Alicent and her. What was the name of her little cadre of inventors and creators, again? Rhaenyra tapped a finger to her chin. She's calling it the Mechanicum, I believe. Naruto snapped his fingers. That's the one. A curious name. Indeed it was, Greatest minds of Westeros and Essos gathered under one roof, each paid exorbitant amounts of money, all to create things that would benefit the kingdoms. Most notably, the maesters were being left out of that, all but excluded, really. Sucks to be them. Naruto shrugged. She chose it, not us. Speaking of which, we should probably check in on her. He didn't miss the little lilt in Rhaenyra's voice just then. Wasn't hard to guess what she meant by that. Viserys must have noticed it as well, because he granted them a careworn smile. Then I shall bid you farewell tomorrow. We will miss you, but I understand your longing for peace and quiet. There will be precious little of that here these next few months. Rhaenyra scaled the steps to lay her hand on his. It's not as though I'm leaving for life. You and Mother are welcome to visit whenever you wish. You are the king, and she, the queen. The Red Keep cannot contain either of you if you do not wish it. We just might take you up on that. Visenya will miss you. A small smile tugged at her lips. I expect she'll be walking by the time we return. This time, the king didn't laugh. Go retrieve your sister wife, then. Before she loses her head in these new inventions of hers. It was nearly ready. Alicent considered the marvelous mechanism before her, this loving LBR, the result of her and several craftsmen, engineers and adepts, hard work and many discussions besides. She could not claim credit for this alone, nor would she, but neither could she conceal the little flicker of pride in her heart at the sight of it. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was close. Oh, so very close. With trembling fingers, she turned it over in her hand, inspecting it for any possible flaw. She couldn't wait to show Rhaenyra and Naruto. This would change the world. A yawn parted her lips and she smiled a little despite her own exhaustion. There could be no greatness without great work, and she had spent a great many sleepless nights here in her new workshop. Her hands were dark with grease and soot already, and she was sure she had a few black marks on her face from wiping sweat away besides. Gone were her jewels and her finery, long red hair bound into a tight bun. She wasn't fond of the style, but couldn't have it get in the way of her experiments, her dress replaced with a pale tunic and breeches. Rhaenyra would have laughed to see her like this, so fiery, so focused. And this was just her latest creation. The portable prototype, if you will. There was so much more to discover, more that the maesters had suppressed since the age of Aegon. Much had been kept from the world in the name of peace over progress, great discoveries that could, and should, benefit the world at large, not be hidden away by wizened old graybeard fools who thought they knew better. She would make so many marvels, for the good of all. For the greatness of mankind. But first, sleep. She sniffed once and frowned at herself. Ugh. Perhaps a bath after said nap. With that thought in mind, she bid her adjutants and fellow inventors good day and departed for her quarters, stumbling along, mumbling half-hearted greetings to those she passed. Some scowled at her drab attire, others turned up their noses at the state of her. She didn't have the strength or energy to respond to either. Finally, she found the door to her chambers. And there, at the end of it, Alicent fell into her bed. It was glorious. Sweet sleep did not come as easily as she thought it would. She'd practically pitched forward into her bed with a groan, leaving her face wedged in the pillow, but rest was slow to come and elusive, much like the dragon hatchlings she'd taken to feeding as of late. Surprise, surprise, they grew rather quickly when they were given space and fresh air alongside ample amounts of food, human or otherwise. Who knew? Some had grown a taste for it after she fed father, may his soul squirm in the void, to them, and she was careful to watch those, lest they become man-eaters or worse, cannibals. Westeros had only one of those and did not need another. Blast her, she was thinking about dragons. She really couldn't sleep, could she? In absence of Ressert her mind churned ever onward. She was practically quivering, brain buzzing from her latest endeavor. Even with the finest minds of kingdom, and some from rather far afield, aiding her, it had taken a great deal of work, but finally they were making progress. She loved it. Really, she had no idea what hour of the night it might be, and frankly she didn't care. So many mechanisms. She couldn't wait to study them all. The maesters had many secrets, and with the death of Melas, she aimed to study them all. Who knew what manner of mysteries the maesters of Old Town might conceal? No, no, no. Don't start an invasion on Old Town, Alicent. She had already had much, and it would be foolish to reach for more. But the prying eyes. The ideas. Abruptly, the bed creaked as someone settled in beside her. Naruto's voice tickled her ear. You've been busy, I see. HRNGH, she groaned into a pillow. Very much so. Here, let me help you relax. He unbound her hair, leaving it to tumble down her still damp shoulders. The straps of her tunic soon followed, and she hadn't the energy to refuse him. He kissed her shoulder. Then her neck. Followed by her cheek. A pleasant tingle pooled between her melons as his lips lingered terribly close to hers before drawing away again. Alicent batted at his face and tried to roll over, only to growl when she realized he wouldn't let her. Husband, I will harm you. Promises, promises. He kissed her neck and she hummed, finding herself warming up in more ways than one. I'm warning you. Words, words. His hand traced her left BRST even as the right swung lower, stroking her inner thigh, before delving deeper between her legs. She felt, rather than saw a flicker of chakra danced across his fingers, and she had an instant to wonder what in the world he was up to before she decided to by the god stat was bliss more. She gasped and suddenly saw stars, leaving her body bucking against him as she found sudden and unexpected release. That's cheating, so very unfair. He laughed, kissed the back of her head and said something she couldn't hear. Her ears were too busy ringing as his hands roaming upward, driving her mad, denying her another release. Craning her neck back only made him kiss her cheek, not her lips as she wanted, and belatedly, she realized she'd given up on sleeping. So much for rest. Hold a moment. If he was here, then where was Rhaenyra? They were never far from one another. Hello, there. Warm lips ghosted across the back of Alicent's neck, and quite suddenly, she had her answer. She'd slipped through the door when she wasn't looking. Reeling a little, she had time enough to look back before they switched positions on her, leaving her perilously pinned between the two of them with no hope of escape. Wait, she tried to plead before they could distract her further. I've something to show the two of you. That can wait. Right now, we only care about you. Alicent tried to argue, but their lips and hands proved devilishly distracting. Gods be good, she wasn't even sure who said what anymore. Their voices blended together in a carnal haze, taking her restraint with it. She really shouldn't. Rhaenyra planted herself in her lap, so bold, and began to kiss her, lavishing attention up her lips. At this angle, her PRGNN belly was abundantly visible. Alicent couldn't help but feel a tad jealous at that. She wasn't with child yet, no matter how much she wished to be. It wasn't fair. It made her want to sulk. Or so it did, until Naruto took a hold of her from behind and began to give her a massage. As he did, her sister wife worked her wicked wiles, grind her body against hers. Funny enough, it was the massage that broke Alicent, not the kisses. Those strong fingers kneaded her shoulders with expert care, followed by her arms, soon her melons, then finally her peach and hindquarters, working out each knot with careful care. It was too much. Alicent Targaryen, she was a Hightower no longer, regardless of what some might say, gave in with a groan and let them have their way with her. It felt good to be dominated, to lean back and let them lavish care on her aching body, her in her bed. Or in the bath. She rather liked the sound of that last one, come though think of it. If this was a dream, she didn't want to wake up. Her inventions could wait a while longer. Giving in never felt so good. The future awaited. What are you working on there, my love? Rhaenyra clasped both hands behind her back as she strode forth into Alicent's workshop. It was the place where Alicent would bring forth the many ideas that the old maesters from Old Town constantly suppressed and hid away for their own gain. With the rise of the king's growing willpower and demands for economic and industrial growth, there was much to be discovered, now more than ever before they departed for the Stepstones. Still, she was curious. It's nothing much, mostly just a thought put forth by the king and highly encouraged by Naruto. The redhead smiled softly. Like the one you showed us last night? She shook her head. Not at all. Rhaenyra perked up, equal parts curious and skeptical. Then what is this? How long does it take for a single scribe or maester to write down a duplicate of an existing book? Alicent inquired, confusing her. A strange question. Well, the princess touched one finger to her chin. That would depend on the book, I suppose. Smaller tomes containing less content will obviously take a shorter time to replicate. Larger books require more. Weeks, months, years if need be. As all books are copied down by hand, the details can change or sometimes be reworded depending on who makes the copy. Exactly. Alicent rounded on her, eyes practically sparkling with satisfaction. Now imagine a device that accelerates the process. From weeks or even months to a few minutes or couple hours. Rhaenyra tilted her head. That is not possible. What device could possibly do that? I believe Naruto called it a printing press. Alicent stated as she showed the blueprint to her sister wife. The base idea of it is to make molds of letters, assemble them into words and sentences, drench them in ink in them. Press them into paper. There's obviously more to it, but this would be the result, a fully copied book that doesn't require parts of the handwritten details going missing. Rhaenyra paused as she truly considered it. That does sound plausible. Can it be done? Already her mind swirled with all the books that could easily be replicated, all the books that could be read. The library of King's Landing would certainly grow larger than before, and far more versatile with the knowledge gained from books from the Citadel being copied down for later use once the maesters were disposed of. If I am given time, and the resources. Alicent added the last reluctantly. She was so adorable when she pouted, she could just eat her UO. Give me some time, I will bring this up to father before we depart for the Stepstones, you have my word. Excellent. Alicent beamed happily, I'll still be here if you need me, or should Naruto require something of me. Well, that's going to have to wait. Rhaenyra told her as the redhead looked to her in confusion. Alicent blinked. I beg your pardon. Rhaenyra smiled happily. Did I stutter? I just told you, you are going to be coming with us on our trip to the Stepstones. The slow flushing of her sister-wife's face was a truly glorious thing to behold. Alicent might have grown brave and bolder in many ways, but in her heart of hearts, she was still her dear friend. As such, she knew exactly her tells well, exactly what buttons to press to get her going. Case in point. Are you certain? Alicent wanted so badly to go, but she was practically stammering over herself in her now. I mean, my services here are far more important, and Lord Hugh and Ulf are still in need of lessons to become properly educated in the ways of nobility and... Rhaenyra sidled up behind her. From there, the war was already run. With lazy grace she pressed her body to Alicent's, looped both arms around her waist and began kiss the back of her neck. Alicent gasped, back arching against. Rhaenyra. That's not fair. I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Another kiss followed the first, lips lingering on her ear, don't mind me. By all means, continue. Alicent tried. There are the hatchlings to see to and... Rhaenyra began to gently fondle her right BRST with one hand, rendering her words a strangled squeak. Surely the Stepstones would be fine without me dash. She was still resisting. That wouldn't do. Questing fingers delved lower across the silk of Alicent's dress, taking hold of her left hand before interlocking their fingers. From there she guided their entwined hands down the former Hightower's stomach, well past her waist. Then she went to work. Slowly but surely. Intently. Despite her verbal protests, her new sister-wife made no attempt to dissuade her. Indeed, Alicent's initial groan of exasperation soon became little gasping as she melted into her, breath hitching as she brought her to the edge and kept her there, just shy of relief. "Go on." Rhaenyra crooned, "You were saying something about not coming." Her dear friend buckled with a gasp at the last word, no doubt realizing exactly what she would be missing if she were to linger in King's Landing. "I'll go," her sister-wife whined, admitting defeat at long last. "Must you tease me so?" "Yes, I must," she delivered a quick peck to her lips. "Now go get dressed before I strp you out of that dress myself and have my way with you here and now." Alicent looked like she might not mind that, until her mind caught up with her. She blushed crimson and shot off to go change. After a moment's pause, Rhaenyra sauntered after her. Surely there was no harm in a little fun before they rejoined Naruto. Hugh Targaryen, an odd name if there ever was one, found himself nervous. Why was he nervous? Well, as of now he was now properly educated, and now he was to receive a dragon. He didn't know what to say about that. The big ones were all claimed except maybe 2 or 3, but was this really going to happen? Ulf was to be taken to Drone in the hopes of taming a wild dragon at a later date, but the king himself had proclaimed that the time had come for him to receive his own. Assuming he survived. He wasn't sure what had prompted the king to change his mind on this. Perhaps it was due to the waning influence of the maesters and the Hightowers, or the conspiracy that had been thwarted, in which both he and Ulf had each played a part by detaining Grandmaster Melas before he could reach Otto with vital information. But regardless, it didn't change the facts of the here and now. As it stood, Viserys, his cousin Aemma, the queen, and Ulf all stood in the dragon pit, waiting for the keepers to come forth. He was shaking, nervous. Was he really about to claim one of these beasts for himself? However, a deep rumbling filled the corridor, a heavy step sounded, followed by another. He felt his heart skip a beat as he watched the beast emerge from the depths of the pit. Massive, would be how he described it. It was nearly as big as the king's own mount, probably exactly as big if slightly smaller. Uldarak, Dohiras, the keeper, commanded the beast. Uldarak was as large as Vermithorwell, slightly smaller, and he had 2 massive curved horns dark as the abyss upon his skull, deep golden-brown scales covering most of its body. A series of overgrowth from various large scales seemed to grow out to form a beard from years of growth, and beast's chest was covered with several large protrusions. It possessed 2 massive wings that had seen their fair use of battle, but not to the point the beast was incapable of flying. It had dark claws as large as a carriage, and a long tail with massive spike covering it like a mace. However, Uldarak was not one for simple commands. He was a beast worthy of his name, the Bearded Flame, and he was not some measly animal. Hugh watched as the maw of the dragon opened, flame filling its throat, and he felt angry, furious in the face of it. He could not die here. He had to make it back to his wife and his child. He had a family to raise, to protect, to keep safe from all the waspish nobles of King's Landing. With no fear or care he stepped up to the beast. "Well. What are you waiting for?" he declared. "Here I am, burn me if you wish," he dared the beast. "Be quick about it." A huff escaped Uldarak as his mouth shut, his head lowering to the ground as a deep rumble filled the dragon's throat. Hugh gave a huff of his own as he marched right up to the beast, raised his hand and placed it at the dragon's nostril as he had been told. A deep inhale sounded as Uldarak took in his scent, the beast's eye closing before a deep and soft rumble sounded, almost as if the beast were pleased. Aemma and Viserys applauded him. "He's accepted you," Viserys remarked as he pat him on his back happily. "This is good, more riders for the House of the Dragon is a good thing. I will have the keepers fit Uldarak with a saddle. For now, let us return to the Red Keep, so you can spend time with that lovely wife of yours," Aemma said, smirking. Hugh grinned, giddy beyond belief. "Why wait, I say we should all fly, the whole lot of, as a family," he said, looking to the king, who shared a look with his wife. "Show off the power of our house, that the dragon remains strong amidst this time of strife." Aemma gave a chortle as Viserys considered it. "We've already gone this far, beloved. The people of King's Landing believe he's one of us. Why not lean into it?" A fine idea, dear Hugh. Viserys nodded, allows us to show our growth in power, and allows you to formally bond to Uldarak. It also helps that we promised Naruto and the girls we would bid them farewell at the same time. Emma said as she smiled to her family. Hugh shrugged. Two birds with one stone, as it were. At the same time in which Hugh was claiming Uldarak, Naruto stood outside the castle grounds with Slyrak, who was currently slumbering next to Vagor, a strange match, but they no longer held animosity towards one another. He chuckled. It felt strange to think that he of all people would be bound to a dragon, but here he was, bound to one. He closed his eyes and smiled softly. But, even then, his thoughts were elsewhere. What would Sasuke think of him now? Kakashi. Sakura. Granny Tsunade. He had tried to remain to his ideals and beliefs, but he was unable to. He was forced to change, and while he remained mostly himself, he had learned to fight as a ninja was meant to, and admittedly, he did not like it. He was glad to help others, especially this royal family who had taken him in, given him not one, but two wives, and allowed him to stop people who wanted to play their secret games to try and start their own dynasty from the shadows. He was unsure as to what they would think, but he only hoped that when the time to meet them came again, they could forgive him for all the wrongs he had committed. A familiar cry from above drew his attention, causing his eyes to pop open, where he smiled happily as he saw a small golden dragon swoop down and land nearby, two figures quickly clambering off the little dragon's back to reveal his two wives climbing down to the ground, where they walked over to him. Rhaenyra, Alicent, glad to see you, he hummed happily as he embraced them both. We said we would head out together. Rhaenyra said as she pulled back, I figured we could get together before father or mother arrived to send us off to the Stepstones. Alicent proved more eloquent, as always. Some of my plans had to be refined before I came, but I am sure Duncan can handle the remaining testings while we are out. Nothing major, I would hope. Naruto questioned and received a shake of his bride's head. All's well then, he smiled. Now all we need to do is wait on His Majesty and the Queen to come and see us off. They should arrive soon. I am told they were taking Hugh to the pit to try and bond him to one of the larger dragons that have not been claimed. Rhaenyra said as she thumbed her chin. You assume he will bond to Dreamfire? Alicent asked curiously. Rhaenyra shook her head, uncertain. No, one of the dragons that I was told to come from the same clutch as Vermithor and Silverwing, or around the time. I just don't know which, as there were several laid at the time and I am unsure as to which dragon will be presented to him. Naruto smiled as he wrapped an arm around her. Well, I am sure he will be bound to a dragon just as strong as him. He's got a good head on his shoulders and an even better heart in his chest. So you say. The sound of flapping wings, something large, drew their attention up, a massive dragon nearly as large as Vagor, but it wasn't Vermithor. Horses galloping beneath revealed the king and queen as they drew near as a roar filled the air. Looks like he got a rather large beast. Alicent smiled. Indeed, I honestly had thought he would have claimed Dreamfire or another. I don't recognize this one. Rhaenyra admitted. Naruto shrugged a shoulder as he watched the massive dragon landed. You did say a lot of large dragons remained unclaimed since the time of Aegon took over. This one could be one of those few, he pointed out. Father, mother, it is good to see you. Rhaenyra smiled, embracing her parents as they climbed down from their saddles. Hugh took the time to land his dragon, Slyrak rising up, a growl filling his throat as he gazed at the whelp. The legitimized Targaryen had to work out a way to climb down, but he was new to riding dragons and was unsure how he would without anything that would help him. It showed in the way he hesitated, lingering, just shy of the saddle. A little help, he requested pitifully. Emma chortled lightly. Hold on, Hugh, be there momentarily, she said before looking to Naruto. Be a dear, she told her son-in-law, who rolled his eyes playfully before jumping through the air and landed on the dragon, who growled, only for a grunt from the former cannibal of Dragonstone to quell him. Hold on to my shoulder. Naruto offered. Hugh looked queasy about the idea, but relented as he did as the boy told him and looped his arm around his neck, the boy's arm gripping at his waist. For the record, I do not like this idea. Hugh told the teen. You'll be fine, trust me. Naruto grinned, bend your knees, it'll cushion your legs from the jump. He watched until Hugh did as he was instructed, and then jumped with him off the dragon to the ground, landing softly. Not so, Hugh. He landed, rather ungracefully, grumbling under his breath, cheeky BRT. Two could play that game. Grumpy old man. Not too old to knock you on your. So, which one is this? Alicent interrupted quickly as she looked to the new rider. Uldarak. Hugh affirmed with a snort. Heh, Naruto said with a hum, another dragon with the name of Rak in it. How curious. Named after the Valyrian god of earth and harvest. A good name. Rhaenyra said as she looked to Hugh approvingly. Thank you, princess. The former BSTRD bowed. Stop that at once, we're family, there is no need to bow to me. Rhaenyra said as she put a hand on his shoulder. Sorry, habit, the former BSTRD answered. The princess smiled softly, it's fine, I am sure we will break such a habit in the coming years, she assured him, then craned her neck back to question her father, how are Ulf's studies coming along, if I might ask. The blacksmith grimaced. Naruto took pity on him. Those lessons were far from pleasant. Slower than intended, but he is slowly starting to get a grasp of what he is meant to learn. Emma answered, surprisingly, he is excelling when it comes to learning High Valyrian, almost naturally in fact, she added the last bit most proudly. The three teens nodded, that's good to hear, I am glad that he's doing well. Rhaenyra said, before looking to Naruto, should we encourage him to take a break, rest his mind for a small time before continuing his lessons? I would believe that he could benefit from some rest. Naruto grunted, not liking the subject of having to learn etiquette to begin with, let's leave that to your dad and mom, we don't hold that kind of influence just yet, he told her as Viserys chuckled. I will be sure to tell the maester to allow for a day of rest for his mind to recover, Ulf has been working endlessly to learn properly, the king assured his daughter. Emma gave Alicent a hug and pulled away, you should head out now, all three of you, she said as she looked between the trio, wouldn't want to hinder the growth of the Stepstones now would we? The three of them shook their heads emphatically. The queen hummed. I thought not. Viserys and Hugh shared a bemused look before turning back as well, we shall head back as well, seeing as the keepers need to fit Uldarak with a proper saddle and help Hugh learn to mount him properly. I still need to hash out some other things with Kat as well. Hugh added as he crossed his arms, apparently her legs are getting sore, but she is otherwise fine, he said as Naruto gained a slightly concerned look for her before calming down. We shall reconvene in the coming months, before your grandchild is born. Rhaenyra smiled as she hugged her parents again. And your new sibling, lest you forget. Alicent smiled fondly. As though you'd let her. Be sure to come back when Arya comes as well. Hugh told Naruto, who nodded. A clone will let me know, the blonde spoke with a nod, I'll be here to ensure everything goes smoothly, he assured Hugh, who nodded in appreciation. Let's get going before minds change. Alicent said as she grabbed Rhaenyra by the hand and turned back to Syrax, and the two women quickly climbed into the saddle. Be safe, the redhead waved her hand. Godspeed to you lot as well, and safe travels. Emma waved happily. Don't do anything we wouldn't. Viserys chuckled. Father. Rhaenyra blushed as Naruto and Hugh chuckled as they watched Emma smacked him on the arm with a chortle of her own. Looks like it is time to go, we'll be back. Naruto said as he nodded to the king, who returned the gesture. Wrapping an arm around Hugh, he leapt upon Uldarak once again and backed down before walking to Slyrak, who raised his head receiving a few pats from the blonde just before he jumped onto the saddle that had once belonged to Balerion. With a wave Naruto gave a call, we'll be back before you know it, he cheered out as he urged Slyrak up and into the air, quickly followed by Syrax and a quickly chasing Bagger as they flew off towards the horizon. 20 gold dragons that the Hightower girl will be PRGN in a month's time. Hugh said down to the king, who guffawed. I say less. Viserys responded as Emma rolled her eyes and mounted her horse. For now, let us return to the Red Keep, he said as he joined Emma and quickly departed with Emma and Hugh following him back to their home. The flight to the Stepstones took 2 days by dragon. Slyrak and Syrax were swift to be sure, but then Vagor had made it her mission to follow behind, and did just that. The 2 battle-hardened dragons and 1 whelp flew on the tailwinds of the heavens, soaring at paces that would make most men jealous. Arrival to their new home was celebrated by some of the commoners that had migrated to the Stepstones, and already signs of construction for a castle could be seen clear as day. The hillside in which the keep would reside was mostly barren for the construction, and was large enough for all 3 dragons to land comfortably upon to rest themselves. And they were welcomed by for Naruto and Rhaenyra at Lysare's familiar face. "Welcome back to the Stepstones, my lord, my ladies." Alicent balked at the pale, dark-eyed giant of a man. He was rather large, standing at an astounding 7 foot 4 inches in height, which was nearly a head above the future Gregor, the mountain Clegane, who would one day stand at 6 foot 9 inches. He was also built like the legendary giants, muscular and powerful, and could clearly do some damage with those logs he called arms. She blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. "You must be Tyberos, then." The massively armored brute smiled not unkindly and nodded once. "I am." "You're certainly very tall," she remarked, not wishing to sound offensive to the man. A soft chuckle, soft as a whisper. "You should meet Rabuta, then," he joked back. "Rabuta?" Alicent questioned. "I suppose you could call him my brother. He is a head taller than I, and far stronger." The giant-blooded man grinned. Oh dear, the man must be a half-giant if he was as tall as this man before her claimed. Enough about that. Naruto sighed. "How are things concerning construction and expansion?" "Well, Rabuta has the builders laying the remaining sections that will eventually be the foundation of the keep. As for the crops, we have yielded enough that they have filled many a silo to the point everyone has been able to have excess meals. And very recently, we have bathed in the blood of your enemies, Lord." Tyberos nodded proudly. Rhaenyra smiled, mildly bemused by the bloodshed. "I'm guessing that's a good thing." "Very good, milady." Tyberos remarked, "Back to what I was saying, before I was distracted, the fields have been expanded nearly to 3 times as originally planned. We have dug out 4 canals that flow through the main area of construction. There are several housing locations that have shown significant improvement with the built-in plumbing constructive implements your lordship have provided. Add in the walls of stone he erected with his magic, we have a very defensible location. In fact, we have repelled near a dozen attacks from both the Dornish and slavers of Bravos or Marine, depending on who tries on the day of week." He bowed his head, finishing his report. "That is very good to hear, Tyberos." Rhaenyra smiled. "No problems on this end of the valley, I would assume." The giant shook his head. "No, milady," he stated. "The brother builders, however, would like some more of milord's clones to help hasten the building of the keep. Apparently they wish to pay homage to your ancestor in some fashion, though I know not how." Naruto waved him down. "I will personally go meet with Brock and Sindri. I am sure they have ideals in mind that could hasten and even improve the keep," he stated. "I'll also provide more clone LBR as well to suit their needs." Tyberos granted him a nod. However, before Naruto or Rhaenyra could depart for their own places of work and duty, a lookout suddenly hallooed loudly, "Ships approaching. They bear black sails." The dragons each raised their heads with an annoyed rumble. Naruto chuckled. Poor timing. Rhaenyra was already vaulting into her saddle. "First to torch them all wins." Naruto grinned. He was only a heartbeat behind. "You're on." Alicent sighed. "You are such children." That very night, everyone shared a toast against the fires of burning ships in the bay. It was a celebration to be remembered. Men drank, women danced, the whole of the Stepstones made merry like never before. Why shouldn't they? Victory was theirs. To the victor goes the spoils and all that. Their home was secure once more, the enemy sailors slaughtered, the dragons content as they feasted upon the fallen. Naturally, there was plunder to be had. Riches aplenty, the kind often found on swashbuckling pirates and mercenaries too stupid for their own good, of which there had been a great many in the last battle. The enemy vessels held quite a few valuables, even the ships themselves. Wood was a rare commodity here in the Isles. That which wasn't decimated by dragonfire was briskly dismantled and put to use by the flourishing populace of Bloodstone. Naruto took some small, paternal pride in that, this thriving community he'd unwittingly built. As for the sailors who survived the inferno by leaping into the water and swimming to safety, they found themselves facing a far grimmer fate ashore. Those who tried to fight were summarily put to the sword. Some of them surrendered and offered to turn their coats, or flags, serving him instead. Most were insincere and summarily fed to the dragons for their lies while the others watched. Realizing the fearsome fate they faced, 3 crews mutinied on the spot, overthrew their craven captains and swore to serve him instead. Their offers were notably sincere, he could sense such, and for that, they were spared. So it was that the Stepstones gained the less than reputable services of the Night Star, the Blood Hawk, and the Iron BLD. Their crews and prisoners were freed from their shackles and summarily given a new lease on life, welcomed with open arms onto the island. It was also how they came to acquire the services of a towering, sullen man going by the name of Perturabo. Alicent would get along with him quite nicely and soon name him her chief engineer, and in doing so, earn his undying loyalty. He would be her loyal protector from that day until his last day. But that is a story for another time. For now, many men and women made merry on the beaches with their spoils, singing and dancing, reveling in surviving another day. Someone had scavenged a lute and a pair of drums from God's new ware and struck up a tune, so they even had music by which to celebrate. It felt good. Naruto basked in it all as he leaned against the edifice of a burnt-out ship they'd recently dragged ashore, clutching a flagon of drink in hand. In all fairness, he wasn't entirely sure what it was, only that it had proven as sweet as it was intoxicating. Tiberos claimed to have made it with a friend, someone he was reluctant to name. Not his concern. How they'd managed to make such a fine brew, he had no idea, but he wasn't about to question it. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth and all that. Say what you would about the Stepstones, but they made some DMN good drink. It blew anything he'd tasted in the palace clear out the water. Knocking it back, he reveled in the taste once more, swaying a little in place before steadying himself. Someone's getting tipsy. Drunk, actually, he corrected Kurama. I'm definitely drunk. How else could he be so deliriously happy? This was supposed to be a happy honeymoon, but he'd already faced no end of challenges, yet despite that, he couldn't help but to grin. They had other islands to defend, other invaders to drive out, influence to extend. It sounded like a whole lot of work. Yet he smiled. Apparently he was a happy drunk. Who knew? It made him want to share this happiness with someone. Alicent loved logistics, but even he could see she was hard-pressed to contain the chaos that followed. Currently he spied her taking animatedly with the recently recruited Perturabo alongside a stern-faced Rabuta and Tiberos, something about explosives bows, waving her hands about as she discussed what he could only assume were weapon designs of some sort. Clever girl, always coming up with new contraptions. He and Rhaenyra couldn't fathom half the designs she made. Girl was smart like that. Rabuta seemed to be busy writing her words into a book of some sort as well. One might even call it a codex. Books had never been his specialty, he'd leave the matters of designs and laws and rules black, to those best suited to craft them. And speaking of wives, where was Rhaenyra? He was tempted to ask Alicent, but she looked so busy, so happy, that he just couldn't bring himself to do so. Craning his neck, he glanced about in search of her. Sure enough, and true to form, he spied her warming herself near the fire. She looked resplendent in her golden dress, a tankard of water clutched idly in one hand. No wine for her, had to be careful of the baby. She had removed her armor, and even from here, he could see the telltale swell of her belly. Gah! Still hard to believe he was a husband, you know. Let alone that he was gonna be a dad soon. It felt good but scary, too. He found himself taking a step towards his wife, only to pause as he thought better of it, then thought better of that instead. Conusing, yeah. Yup, definitely drunk. Still, he found himself quietly contemplative. Rhaenyra had been unusually skittish since he'd mentioned his chat with Alandra after the battle. She hadn't been avoiding him per se, but neither did she make an active effort to seek him out either. Firelight flashed out from the massive bonfire, illuminating the sky and stars above. It painted her face a bloody orange. She wore a strange expression on her face as she stared into the flames. One might have called it cautious if they didn't know better. He certainly did, and he didn't feel like being cautious tonight. Liquid courage in hand, he sauntered forward. Rhaenyra didn't see him coming until the last moment, by then it was too late for her to flee. Precisely as planned. There you are. He plunked down beside her, slinging his free arm around her waist before she could bolt. How we doing? Lost in thought? To his great relief she leaned into his side and laid her head to rest against his shoulder. Of a sort. They subsisted in silence for what felt like an eternity. Like a fox in a temple, Naruto shattered it. So about Alandra. 3 words. That was all it took for Rhaenyra to go tense against him. She didn't look his way, but he could see the shadow from the fire dancing across her face, hiding her true intentions from him. Have you given thought to what she said? He nodded once. I have. Rhaenyra bit her lip, looking more uncertain than he'd ever seen here before. And? She seemed so small and sad for a moment that he couldn't help himself. Without a second thought he leaned, planted both hands on Rhaenyra's peach-like so, in and lifted her up. His wife yelped. What are you doing? Rather than retort he planted her in his lap and held her then, hands planted over her belly and the little life within. She squirmed angrily for a moment before settling against him with a sullen sigh. Her head leaned back gracefully as she tucked her face into his neck, idly nuzzling it. He inhaled reflexively, but refused to let her distract him, even as she began to plant a series of kisses there. As such, he didn't expect what came next. You should be with her. His brain blanked. Excuse me? Be with her. Rhaenyra pivoted in his lap to face him fully, taking his hands in hers. It would solve a great many problems. She said one thing and meant another, he could see that the suggestion pained her. Yeah, no. The soon-to-be queen frowned, not quite comprehending his response. What? I don't want her, he spelled it out for her, threading his fingers through her own as the fire crackled before them. I want you and Alicent. Raising their intertwined hands, he kissed her knuckles. You're both more than enough for me. Some might say too much, even. DMN, but they wore him out sometimes. Her lips pursed. Perhaps. No. He put his foot down literally, stomping it against the sand. This world doesn't need more children with chakra running around, and definitely not in Dorne. The idea that she would even allow such a thing disturbed him. He wasn't one to be swayed so easily by a pair of tips and a pretty face. To be fair, he'd been attracted to Rhaenyra's personality and sass long before he took an active interest in her as a woman. Alandra's words came back to him just then and he bridled beneath Rhaenyra. It was probably a good thing she was sitting in his lap, otherwise he'd be up on his feet and pacing around by now, such was his agitation. Spread my bloodline, she says, even now, he bridled at the thought. And do what? Start a war. Ha! When Rhaenyra tried to retort he barked a laugh, much to her dismay. I don't think so. The last time too many folks with chakra gathered in one place we had 4 great shinobi wars. It's gonna be difficult enough raising our kids with Alicent's alongside them. Adding a third party into that mix? No, thank you. But you find Alandra attractive, no? Ray, he sighed, using her nickname in a rare moment of irritation, I find your mother attractive. Miseria too, if we're being honest. Doesn't mean I'm gonna bed them. Then what's the trouble with Alandra? Many things. She was a Flirtatious, fiery woman, and he didn't trust her one bit. She wanted his child, but why? Was he that attractive? Was she that eager to be a mother? Kurama answered the question for him. Unlikely. Exasperated, he reached up to run his hand through Rhaenyra's hair. She'd been growing it quite long as of late, and he couldn't bring himself to ask her to cut it. She recognized the gesture, the olive branch, for what it was and leaned into his palm. Can't you at least try? Stubborn girl. Say I knock her up like you ask. And what then? An angry growl escaped him. Other great families will get the same idea. I'm the gateway to chakra in Westeros. If 3 families could gain access to it, why not 4? Or more? Should I just drop my pants every time someone appealing comes by? For the Velaryons and the Lannisters while I'm at it. Maybe the Starks have a great northern beauty they'd like me to meet as well. Is that what you want? She flushed, indignant and perhaps just a little hormonal. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. No, you just want me to bet a random woman I barely know. You did with Alicent. Alicent was different, he bared his teeth at her, offended by the insinuation. I talked to her. I knew her. I sympathized with her. Rhaenyra's smile was smug. You fell in love with her. He scowled at her, allowing that point. Because he had. Perhaps from the moment he first caught her spying on him. She had been so small and afraid back then, unable to step out of her father's shadow for fear of being struck down, naturally that made him want to protect her. And as he got to know her, he found he enjoyed her company more and more. Looking at her, seeing her plight, it made him angry. Not at her, but for her. A caged bird was an appealing but broken thing, and he'd seen more than enough for those for one lifetime, thank you very much. When Rhaenyra first suggested marrying Alicent, he was leery of it, but that wariness was worn down by 3 factors. 1, she was a good person. 2, it would grant her freedom from her family. And 3, she would never ever betray him to Otto. Granted, the latter was a bit of a moot point now, given that man was Dragon Chow, but still. Love had come in the fullness of time and with it she had blossomed into a raving beauty, now she was one of the few people in Westeros he trusted wholeheartedly. Could the same be said for Alandra? He already knew the answer. She was a snake in the grass, and he didn't trust snakes. I don't know Alandra, he shook his head. She's difficult to read. Probably no coincidence that she came by just before our wedding night. Rhaenyra glanced down at her belly. She spoke to me beforehand as well. Naruto's brow shot into his hair. Did she now? A nod. And what did she say? Rhaenyra told him in no uncertain terms. By the end of it, his ears were red. Terribly so. Wicked woman indeed. He had no doubt that Alandra had been with other men, perhaps even other women. She probably viewed Rhaenyra as another conquest for all he knew, or worse, a means to get closer to him. Yes, she was appealing, attractive even. But as he well knew, sometimes beauty only ran skin deep. Betting her might create peace. Might. He countered, making a pinching motion with 2 fingers. It also might kickstart a war the likes of which will leave the last pale by comparison. Rhaenyra was a Targaryen through and through, she wouldn't be if she gave in so quickly. It would be the easy way to prevent a war from breaking out. She pressed her forehead to his, breath warm on his face. Make her a CNCBN, fix by your side, and Dorne may well fall into line. Assuming they too, weren't part of the conspiracy as a whole. Corin Martell had already suggested the Vale might be, and the Hightowers, while weakened with Otto's death, still remained a threat, and with them, the Maesters as a whole. That was to say nothing of the other houses. The Velaryons may well be assuaged if Daemon deigned to marry Lena, but what of the rest? Snakes. Everywhere he looked. Ready and waiting to bite. Was this how Targaryens went mad? If so, he pitied them. Naruto rolled his eyes. She didn't understand. But how could she? That was a burden he alone carried. He wasn't afraid of chakra, and he never would be. No, he was wary of its possibilities. It was a good pure thing, one that could easily be used for evil. He had seen it countless times. Easy, he drew back and pinched the bridge of his nose, muttering crossly to himself. If only everything I did were so easy. Then. No. He rounded on her, eyes wild, teeth bared. The easy way isn't always the right way. I should know. She flinched and he felt bad, but it was too late now. The dam was broken and the floodwaters flowed forth, sweeping away rational thought with them. You haven't seen what chakra can do. Destroying an island. Ha! A bark of bitter laughter escaped him as he briefly threw his head back and yanked it down thrice as quickly. That'll be the least of your worries. Think of your worst nightmares, then multiply them by 10. Mind-bending illusions. Warriors that can't die. Jutsus so vile, techniques so foul I won't even speak of them here for fear of being tainted by association. She reeled, and as she did, he twisted the proverbial knife. Have you ever seen a soul erased from existence? I have. For crying out loud, Death himself helped seal Kurama inside me shortly after I was born. Sorry for that. Don't be. That wasn't you. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, he finished with a shout. He was terrified, not of the here and now, but of the future. Already he could feel himself breaking out in a cold sweat just thinking about it. Rhaenyra and Alicent he could at least trust with chakra because he'd spent so much time around them, months, years. They were flawed, yes, frankly everyone was, but in their hearts he knew they wanted to do good. Likewise, he would be a great father to their children, careful to raise them right and teach them right from wrong. Alandra? Didn't know her. No idea about her motives. Why give her a child, knowing she'd take them and raise them in Dorne? It was akin to handing a poison dagger to someone who could stab you in the back. Sure, they might not use it, but what of her descendants? And what of their children? Dorne wasn't officially a part of kingdoms, not yet. People would get ideas. And what if he kept Alandra confined in King's Landing? Any children she had from him wouldn't be a part of the royal line. That would foster resentment amongst any of Alandra's supposed children. Even if he was around to personally stamp it out, it would rot. Fester. Unless of course, he married her too, which he wasn't about to do. Technically Rhaenyra had been the one to marry him and Alicent, feasible given her heritage, but even so, people had balked at it. Balked, but it was allowed, given she'd likely become queen someday. A marriage with 4 people in it. Unheard of. And while he didn't give a flying fig what the realm thought, he could see that this was a bad idea. Moreover, he didn't want to marry Corran's daughter. He was happy, dare he say content. Why risk it all by getting greedy? It was already too late to prevent chakra from being brought to this world, his child was well on its way. But he could be DMN sure another great shinobi war didn't spring up on his watch. He'd sooner lop off his right hand than allow another tragedy like that to spring up again. Rhaenyra didn't say anything for a long moment. At length. She tilted her head. You've thought this through, haven't you? Of course I have. He laid a hand on her belly, which had become much more noticeable as of late. These are our children. I want to build a bright future for them, you know. She laid a hand on his. We weren't able to defeat Dorne in the last war. They know this. That's likely why Alandra made her offer. Naruto huffed. You didn't have me last time. He was familiar with the histories regarding the South, Viserys had seen to that. The Dornish were wily in the art of war. Guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Entire towns left abandoned, nothing for the dragons to kill, no armies to fight, no territory to hold that wasn't taken back practically overnight. And when dragons were sent, a lucky shot brought down a dragon and princess alike. Merax's and Rhaenys, the latter of whom was practically Rhaenyra's own namesake insofar as he was concerned. They would not have Rhaenyra. At the end of the day, despite his marriage he was no true dragon, he was worse. If the Dornish did anything to endanger his loved ones, if they made war against him, if they hurt those he cherished, he wouldn't simply turn the sands of Sunspear to glass or boil its so-called sea. He'd go further. All the way. Wipe it clean off the map. There would be no future Seventh Kingdom. Rhaenyra gave him an intent look. "You're doing it again." He chuckled. "Doing what?" She leaned into him and kissed his forehead. "Destroying our enemies in your head. I can see the gears turning in your mind. Thinking about devastating Dorne, are we?" "No." Tuteing once, she began to fiddle with her dress. "You always were a poor liar, husband." He snorted despite himself, slightly amused. "You're not going to argue with me about this anymore. What would be the point? You've clearly made up your mind. Far be it from me to change it." The fabric tumbled away, exposing her bosom to his wanting eyes. Too late, he realized what she intended. "Hey! At least wait until we find a bed. SEC on the sand itches like a..." "There you are." Rhaenyra yanked her dress back up. He glanced to the right just in time to see Alicent striding towards them, seeing she'd finished whatever mad contraption she was working on. Her eyes were bright, her smile radiant, the firelight seemed to catch her red hair and set it alight in the night. She looked well, radiant seemed too poor a word, but it was the best he could think of given the moment. But why? Scarce had he thought than she sat beside him. Rhaenyra squirmed off his lap and in an instant, he found himself pinned between the two of them. They shared a meaningful glance, it was as though they communicated without a single word. Naruto frowned. "Hey." He should have realized something was up then, but his inebriated mind floundered. Alicent leaned into him with a content sigh, she looked tired but satisfied, and her words put paid tot hat. "Something wonderful has happened. The maester just confirmed it." Rhaenyra perked up, violet eyes dancing with barely restrained glee. "Oh." Alicent took a hold of Naruto's hand and pressed it to her belly. His eyes widened. "No. Surely not. It couldn't be. It most assuredly could. I'm with child." That tore it. Naruto began to laugh, he wasn't quite sure why, whether it was from glee or fear, or some mad blend of hysterical disbelief, but laugh he did. He pitched backward, clutching his gut, legs kicking, flailing on the sand until he could laugh no more and needed to breathe. No, it wasn't fear at all, he realized, but relief. Any fear for the future he might have felt was summarily obliterated in that moment. Great heaving gasps of air filled his lungs as he struggled to rise, to recover. His newfound family didn't give him a chance. Rhaenyra settled atop his lap, pinning him down. "I'd say this calls for a celebration, no?" Alicent moved in on his flank to cut him off, already shedding her green dress as she went, kicking out of her slippers to leave them lost in the sand. "I quite agree." Naruto sputtered as their hands, and their lips, roamed over him. "Now wait just a second." Alicent tooted impatiently. "We will not. Not a jot." Rhaenyra agreed. In all fairness, he tried to protest, he tried all sorts of things. This was a bad idea, it was night, people would surely see them, all for naught. Rhaenyra and Alicent simply weren't having it. All too soon, his wives had shed their attire entirely, baring their bodies to him under waning moonlight. If they had any shame, they didn't show it, nary one bit, not a single iota. His throat closed at the tantalizing sight before his dazed gaze. What a lovely night to be alive, eh? Kurama bowed out. Have fun. For a singular moment, there was only the crackle of the fire, the gentle hum waves lapping against the sand. Rhaenyra broke the silence and kissed him deeply, lips lingering over his own. Care for a swim, husband? Alicent drew his arm between her melons, idly tugging him towards the water. "Won't you join us?" His mouth went drier than the dastardly deserts of Dorne. DMN. In the end, he let Rhaenyra and Alicent drag him into the surf. Making love in the water proved a novel experience. It was, as they say, a lovely night for a swim. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author NeonZangetsu on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.